happens.
Okay.
So that can be a big plus for anybody just to get their life in order until they figure out what the bus routes are to work.
Right. That's hilarious. Yeah, I was living in Manhattan on Wall Street, and I learned this about this thing called public transportation,
Well, in
which
Manhattan, geez, dude, why would you have a car?
I was actually going to drive my car across the states just to have one, but I would have had to pay like $500 a month to do it. But yeah, I was completely unfamiliar with public transit, and then all of a sudden I'm like taking the subway, I'm taking buses. I'm like, wow, these buses are nice. I mean, they should serve alcohol in those things. They make a killing. It's like, I mean, some of those buses are nicer than limos I've been in. So it's not a bad thing. Where I used to have this like intrinsic hatred of being on a bus. It's like they're not that bad at all. Anyway, that's completely off topic, but yeah. Okay, so do you have any? Is there any way to hedge your bets better when you're battling the DMV or anything like that? Or
Um, the big issue, yes, a DMV, you can fight a DMV case, and the thing, rather than get into every possibility, it's get in that notice within the 10 days. If you like, I'm going to go ahead and do a little pitch for myself here. When I handle a DUI case, I always let people know that part of the deal is I handle your DMV case.
right? Okay.
I don't know whether other lawyers do, but I do just because it's the same evidence
Right.
generally,
Okay.
and they haven't handled DMV cases, and I have.
Okay.
Um, that's where you start. Is you've got to let the DMV know and get somebody on the case. But as for how to beat it, if there's a bad stop, the cop is claiming that he stopped you for expired tags, and you've got a picture of your tags that night showing they were okay, then anything that happens after that, the DMV the DMV needs to recognize it was a bad stop. So, anything you did on the field sobriety test, anything you blew into the little machines, they can't consider because it was a bad stop.
Oh, that's beautiful. We didn't even talk about bad stops. I'm barely aware of them, but they basically have to have some kind of reason for pulling you over, huh?
Yeah, yeah, they always have. They can't just pull you over on a hunch. This goes for criminal cases, of course, especially. But they can't just decide, hey, I don't like the looks of that guy. So what you will see is cops can find something if they want to stop you. They will figure it out. In California, there's a case from a couple of years ago now, uh, talking about you've seen cops talk about the guy was weaving all over the road, he crossed the center line, that kind of stuff. There's a case in California saying the guy was weaving within his lane, and that made it okay to stop him. So the guy never even crossed a line.
Yeah, that's bullshit. I got pulled over for that one night. I don't even think I'd had a single drink. I was with my buddy, and I got pulled over for swerving. I was like, really? And it was within the lane, but I think that was just their chance to test out their compliance skills or something. But I think I considered it a bad stop. I mean, is there a way to fight that, or how does that work?
Well, you won't be able to fight it in the moment. You just can't. You can say, look, I don't think I was swerving, and they will say, yes, you were, and that's pretty much where that conversation is going to stop.
Okay.
So you can still shut up. You can still not consent to a search of your car. You can still not consent to field sobriety tests and whatever else. But if they want to stop you, they're going to stop you. And it's unfortunate, but it's just that's how it is in
Okay.
America.
Right.
I don't like it. I'm sure you've known people who were busted for basically driving while black. You've heard that phrase before.
Yes.
They see a black guy in a nice car and they say, well, there's got to be something here, and it's not true most of the time. So they end up just talking to you know some guy who happens to have a nice car because that's what they're used to. They're basically profiling, and it's wrong. But there's no unless there's some clear proof, and there's almost never clear proof. Then it's just not going to go anywhere. It's one more hassle, but it's not something where you can't make them not do it.
Right. I
The
see.
only way to actually stop it would be to somehow read all of these officers' minds, and that's not going to happen.
Right. Right. Okay. So, but if they if they give you an excuse aside from something intangible like swerving in your lane, which sounds retarded by itself, but if they say, I don't think there'd be any way they'd fault something that was not true unless they had to come up with a reason after the fact, and then they made a mistake. Um, wow, that just brings up so much. I think it kind of brings into play like, can you record police conversations? How does this work? Um, what is legal as far as being able to record what the officer is saying to you?
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. I know I've said this in a couple of other contexts in this discussion. It does depend on the law in your state. In California, which is what I know best, there is a requirement in the law that recording a conversation requires consent of all the parties involved. So it's technically illegal to record cops, but there's an expectation of privacy written into the law. So if you're an on-duty police officer talking to somebody out in public, courts are not going to say you had an expectation of privacy in that conversation, right? Anybody could have walked by and overheard that. So,
Oh,
so in that sense, you can record them, and you just need to make sure you're not doing it secretly. You
oh.
want them, you kind of want the cops to know you're recording, right?
Yeah, for prevention, absolutely. You definitely do. However, if they've already done something illegal,
Yeah.
you definitely kind of like not. You don't want to let them know. I would imagine. I mean, it's such a gray area. Um, what would you suggest? I guess you would just say, "Officer, I'm going to record this conversation. This is a public conversation. Anyone could be walking by, or this is public sphere, or something like that."
Yeah. Well, you would tell them, A, I'm not interfering with anything that you're doing. Because
Okay.
they may try to claim that. And you say, I'm not interfering. You are being documented, and this is key. Let them know that the recording is going off site. So the recording doesn't just live in whatever device you've got.
Wow.
Because then
Okay.
that device, you will never see it again.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Right. Oh, actually, just a little tip for anybody. Again, I'm throwing in these, how not to get your life ruined by getting arrested. If you have a smartphone, as most people listening to this podcast will, put some kind of passcode on it. Anything. I mean, it can be the most basic, you draw the little pattern or you punch in a series of numbers or whatever it is. Put a passcode on it and set your videos to private.
Okay.
Because if they seize your phone and it doesn't have that stuff on it, congratulations. Even if there's nothing there, do you want people reading your text messages?
Right. So they would have to get a court order to unlock that, and they just generally wouldn't do that, right?
Right.
Now, if you do have something recorded on there that is evidence for you, and they confiscate your phone, how do you get it back later?
You might have to get a court order to get that returned to you.
That's just crazy. They could take your phone just because they want to.
Well, they can. What can happen is you get arrested, and they take whatever you're carrying on you as they're just booking it into evidence, and you can ask for it back. But if they believe if they can believe or can credibly state that they thought there was evidence of a crime on your phone as a picture, as a text message, whatever, then they'll seize it. They'll hang on to it because now it's evidence. They're not going to hand it back to you because you'll delete it.
Right. Now, the only thing is, though, is what if you're not being arrested? What if you're just getting a simple little ticket or no ticket at all, and the guy's just being a dick, and you want to report him for later? Is he still able to confiscate your phone that way?
Well, we've talked about how some cops are going to play dirty, and your phone can get disappeared. Okay, but this is why, as I say, you have a passcode on it. You should be backing up your phone to something else. I know that's a little techie for a lot of people, but you back up your phone to somebody else and be prepared to lose it.
Okay.
It's not right, but it can happen.
Right. When you say record it to off-site, what do you mean? Like, so that the video actually records, the audio actually records it somewhere on the internet? What do you mean off-site to the actual phone?
Record. I'm talking about that it is possible to record to the computer cloud that doesn't live on any specific machine.
Okay, sounds
And
like.
I'm not saying it has to be true.
Ah, okay. Okay.
I'm saying that even if you don't have it set up, you want the officer to know to remind the officer that it's possible. I mean, if you can do it and you're interested in having your phone set up that you can do that, then great, do it. I don't know how to do it, but you would tell the officer this is being recorded off site. So if your phone disappears, it's not going to make your problem go away.
Right.
That's
Well,
what you want them to understand.
okay. I'll tell you what. For the guys listening and for you as well, Quick Note is actually such an application, and you can download it. You can put it on your desktop of your phone. You click record, and it automatically records to the internet. It automatically records to your Quick Note accounts on online, and that is amazing. I mean, you know, for things I do with like if I'm with a chick and we start recording something naughty, it's kind of cool to be able to have it like offside just so we can look at it later and whatnot. But same thing for cops. I've recorded cops before, video, and I use Quick Note, and it went right to the internet. So that's something for the guys listening. A little tip. I
Yeah.
believe it's QIKNOTE. I don't think it's QUIK, or maybe it is QUIK. Just look it up. And it's that exact thing. It records video or audio and puts it and shoots it directly to the internet. I mean, it saves in your phone, but it also saves there as well automatically. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to send something, anything like that. So it's a great little app. Um,
Yeah, and you don't have to turn that over to the police. It's not your job to help them. You videotape an officer doing something wrong, and he says, "Give me your phone." You say, "No."
okay.
you you want a court. You got a court order. That's great. But the First Amendment applies to everybody, not just journalists. I have heard of cases where the officers will say, "What paper do you work for? If you're not working for a newspaper, you don't have a right to be here or film this or whatever." First Amendment applies to everybody. If the officer says it's against the law to take pictures here, and you know that's not true, you can say calmly and clearly what the law is. There's no rule against taking pictures of federal buildings. I know that people used, 10 years ago, people were sort of freaking out about that, taking pictures around the Pentagon or whatever, after September 11th, 2001, and there were people being threatened, tourists.
Right.
And it's not illegal. They're buildings you paid for, man. You're
Yeah.
standing outside, throwing up gang signs in front of the Pentagon. Fine. There's no law against that.
Okay, so basically you're saying we kind of just got to the meat of the matter at very late in this part of the conversation. You're saying if you record an officer doing something dickish and you want to use it later, and he's not arresting you, and you let him know you've recorded him, and he asks for your phone, you tell him no, you can't take my property. Basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's very important. I'm glad we got that straight.
Yeah, you hand it to him, and then we're back to consent. Well, you voluntarily gave it over, and whatever happens to the
Ah.
phone.
Okay. So if they try to demand it, and you need some kind of like legal doctrine or law, what's the law for that? Private property?
Yeah, it's my property. You don't, you got a court order.
Okay, right. Court order.
Yeah,
Right.
you got a warrant. You can take my phone. If not, I guess we're done talking. We come back to, am I free to leave?
Okay. Sounds good. I love
And
it.
right, but for all of this, if you're gonna talk to an officer the way we're talking about it, you need to be prepared to have things break bad. The officer can reach out and smack your phone out of your hand, and it breaks on the sidewalk. You know, that's you can be legally right and still lose your phone. You can be legally right and still lose some teeth.
Right. That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So about 5, 6 months ago, I got pulled over. My registration, I just got back to Vegas. My registration had expired. I didn't even realize it because it's just one of those things, right? It was like 3 days after the fact. I get pulled over. I'm like, oh shit, thanks, officer. I didn't even know. He was cool. He didn't even give me a ticket. He's like, get this fixed. I'm like, no problem. He was the good cop. You know how they pair up good cop, bad cop? It's like they must do some kind of psychological profiling because it's very true. There's always a good cop, and there's always a bad cop. My buddy in my passenger seat got the bad cop. This bad cop starts harassing him, asking him to see his driver's license, which he gives up, and asking if he's got any, prior arrests. And apparently my buddy had a prior arrest I don't even know about, right? So
Yeah.
he's got to go through all this rigmarole. And come to find out, I'm pretty sure he didn't even have the right to ask to see my passenger's ID, right?
Yeah, he's not stopping. I mean, he can ask. Of course, he can ask,
Okay.
but he you don't have to. I would need to double check this because I can't remember that. I know that officers have to ID themselves if you're the one being arrested, but I'm trying to remember the last time I had a case. It depends on the law in your state. California doesn't have a statute requiring a detained person to identify himself. And not identifying yourself to a cop is not interfering with their duties. But a person like your passenger in your car, if you're stopped, it's bizarre, but that's the law for you. The guy that your passengers are not technically detained.
Right.
So they could, you're on the highway, whatever. I guess they could technically just get out and walk away. Um, if the officer has some kind of suspicion that the person is involved in criminal activity, that's something else. But just being in a car with somebody who's speeding or has expired tags or whatever doesn't make everybody in the car a suspect.
Yeah, my buddy just basically had a case created against him because he freaked out. He handed over his license, and then when he said the guy cop asked, "Do you have any priors?" He's just like, "Oh, well, I do, but like that." The cop was
Yeah.
like, "That's when the cop realized I swear to God, it was just a compliance test. Like he was practicing his compliance skills on my buddy who fell for it, and this guy's actually this guy's a dating coach." And afterwards, he was still tripping balls. I looked at him and I said, "You stop being a fucking pussy." And that was pretty much the end of the conversation. But I wasn't. At that point, we weren't sure what his rights were. But come to find out, he didn't even have to give him his ID. So what does he say at that point if the cop asked to see his ID?
No.
Okay.
Um, because the passenger in the car has the same right to say, "Am I being detained?"
Right.
And if I'm not, but again, he has to be prepared to start using his shoes because if he's going to sit there and keep talking to the officer, then what happens at that point? He's consenting to the encounter with the cop.
Well, all he's got to do is roll his window up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm not talking to you. I don't have anything to say. Bye.
Right. I want to be able to protect my passengers. To be honest, I mean, when this happened, I felt like my buddy in my car is under my protection, and I can't protect him at this point. But now I can. Am I able to just talk to my buddy to the officer and say, he doesn't have to give you anything?
You can say it, but it gets into a tricky situation where the officers will split you up. They can claim that you were interfering. You've used the term compliance a couple of times, and I think that's an important term to remember. The big kind of overarching issue that people run into when they have bad encounters with cops is they come down to what I call failure to obey. The cop sees that you are not complying, whether it goes as far as just asserting your rights as you're walking down the street, or you're being arrested and the cuffs behind your back hurt because he's wrenching them hard, and you flinch. The cop says, "Stop resisting." And you're shocked when you go into court and find yourself charged with resisting arrest out of that. But it happens.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's just amazing how all this shit just spirals out of control and you're facing more and more. Okay.
Yeah, you don't need that, right?
Right.
Nobody does.
So the best option in this case is just tell your buddy, just don't roll your window down.
Yeah.
You don't have to. And then if he happen to have the window rolled down, just be like, "No, I don't need to give you my ID," and then just roll it up from there. I would imagine. Okay, that's good stuff.
Yeah, and while you're pulling over, while you're pulling over and while you're keeping your hands in view, you can say, "Okay, everybody in the car, shut up."
Yeah. Right.
Don't start talking about how, well, you don't have any charges, but you do have a warrant out of Oregon, or whatever it is that you think the cop wants to know. Shut up.
Yeah, yeah. People do that all the time. It's amazing how. That is borders on stupidity. Oh yeah, I think we covered that one really well. I'm glad I remember that at the last minute there. This is the last little section I wanted to discuss with you, and it was a little bit more of a gray area, but it's something that I've done really well with officers is where I put the pressure back on them. I did that to the officers last month when they did the illegal search. Made them feel like shit. I basically tooled them, and then that was it. They didn't overstep anymore. In fact, once I did that, they became a lot nicer, right? Like it's like they turned into humans on the spot, you know. And I've also, I've been pulled over by cops, and they're like, "You were speeding," and I was like, "No, I wasn't. I will absolutely see you in court. I can't wait. This is going to be great." And just the way I'm talking about it, like it really gives them a lot of incentive to not give me that ticket because they know I'm a guy that can talk and it's just going to like make them look like an ass in court. I'm actually though very interested in legal rights. We've already discussed being able to record them legally. I want to know what other kind of pressure you can exert in a very subtle fashion that lets them know that there's recourse. So I'm pretty sure you're able to ask an officer what his name and badge number is. What is the deal with that?
Yeah, that's a weird area. We started talking about that a little bit before. That if you are under arrest and you are being arrested, yes, absolutely, you have a right to know that guy's name, badge, and car number. This is at least California, and I'm assuming it's going to be similar everywhere. Um, it gets into a dicier area when it's like, okay, you and your passenger, and they find out your passenger has an outstanding warrant, so they're going to arrest your passenger. And you say, "Hey, officer, what's your badge number?" He doesn't have to give that badge number to you, okay? But you should ask because they might tell you. He doesn't have to tell you, but he might tell you. You should ask for the charge and where your buddy's being taken and who you can call for. You're trying to ask your buddy this. Who can I call for you? So that, when he eventually gets out, he's got somebody there to pick him up. Either way, whether I'll come back to the identification thing. This came up a few months ago in one of the Occupy protests. I don't know if you know about those. There was an Occupy Oakland where the officer was getting ready to go into, I assume it was riot control mode, and he had actually put electrical tape over his identifying information on his chest, like just
Holy
black tape.
shit! Okay.
And there was an activist there with a video camera, and this guy with a video camera was not going to take no for an answer. He was like, "What is that? That is black tape." And he said, found the guy's commanding officer a few steps away, walked him over there and said, "Is this okay? Is this right?" And the CO made him take it off.
Good.
Right there on camera. And then the guy gets a nice big fat close up of this officer's identifying information.
Oh, good.
What I don't remember, I think I remember that both officers ended up getting in trouble over that. Not just the officer who wanted to cover up, but his commanding officer didn't report it. So they both got in trouble over it. But you're talking about whether cops have to identify themselves. If you are under arrest, those rights kick in, and you have the right to know who is arresting you. But if it's your buddy, all you can do is ask. Either way, even if you don't get the officer's badge number, you can and should note the date, time, place, names and numbers of any witnesses around, whether you know them or not. Any pictures or video you can get, you get it. I meant to mention this before when we were talking about videotaping cops, and this also comes back to for your own safety. Don't ever point a camera or anything else that might be taken as a gun like a cop or at a cop.
Okay.
Right? I mean, you can understand why that would be. It's dark, things happen very quickly, but it's amazing, but sometimes people are holding a cell phone and in the dark, things are happening fast and the cop thinks it's a weapon. Things will go bad very quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense actually, for sure.
Yeah. So that's your identification anyway. Coming back to that, if you can see it yourself, write it down quickly before you forget it, and use that information. Every jurisdiction in America is going to have some kind of variation of an office of citizen complaints, where you can go and say, "I saw this officer doing X, Y, Z. I don't think it's right. I think it should be investigated." And because they don't want to have this kind of reputation, you know? If they've got some bad apples, usually if there's a record, they're going to want to get rid of those guys because all the good cops out there are getting shit flung in their face from what the bad guys are doing.
Right. I actually meet a good cop every few months, and I'm just like, wow, that's a great guy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what if you're just being? What if you know? What if you're in downtown San Diego and a cop is like pulled you over to talk to you, or not pulled you over, just on the sidewalk with you, talking to you, and he's being a dick.
Yeah.
And you say, officer, what's your badge number? It's you and him interacting. Can you ask for his badge number name at that point?
Sure, why not? It's probably there on his badge, literally on his chest. So you don't even have to ask. You can just look at it.
Okay.
And you can let him know as openly as you want to in that situation that here I am getting out my piece of paper and I'm writing down your badge number.
Okay. That's good stuff. I like knowing that. Okay, cool. Um, I this was quite comprehensive. This pretty much exceeded my expectations even. Gunnar, why don't you lay down your website for the guys and what kind of law you practice and all that, and where you're located?
Okay. I am based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I cover, let's see, up to this point, I have covered 14 counties up here for one cause or another. I handle exclusively criminal defense. That's both trials and appeals. I also handle people's DMV hearings, and although we haven't talked about it, anybody with a criminal conviction, is particularly misdemeanors, can look into getting their records expunged, which means that it gets cleared, and it's great for,
Resumes.
on job applications. They
Right.
say, "Do you have any convictions?" It allows you to say no.
Cool.
So I handle people's expungements as well.
Beautiful.
My website is rosenquistlaw.com. It's also gunnarlaw.com. That's GUNNARLAW law.com. As you noted, it's pretty bare bones, but it has my contact info and a little bit of information about how it's going to go if you hire me for your case. I'm not, I can tell you that if you're in a situation in San Diego, you probably don't want to pay me to fly down there and handle your case. If you do, I'm happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
But, you get somebody local, and I can tell you if you're hiring a lawyer who promises you the moon and says, "Oh, I can guarantee such and such a result," they're lying to you, okay? Because there's a prosecutor and a judge involved in every case.
Right.
And a lawyer can only do so much. You don't get to put on the robes and go up there and decide what evidence comes in and all that stuff. In my practice, as I mentioned earlier, if it's a DUI case, I handle people's DMV hearings because I think it's fair and it makes sense, and I don't charge extra for that. Some lawyers handle that differently, but that's just how I do. The last thing that I think makes my practice a little bit different is that when you hire me for your case, you're paying for everything up through one trial. It's not some people charge less, some people charge more, but what's very common in criminal, which, I hope you never have to find this out, but people hire a criminal lawyer and they say, "Well, you're hiring me up to trial. And then if you want to take your case to trial, you actually want to fight it and exercise your constitutional rights to fight it, that's going to cost you $5,000 a day."
Yeah, what's the point of hiring a lawyer up to trial? Is there any point at all?
Yes, because it's getting the police documents reviewed by a lawyer can help tremendously. You can beat cases before trial. You absolutely can. You can
Got it. Right.
beat them through motion to suppress. You can beat them like I told you about my former client with the bad back, right? Somebody had to actually listen to that recording and know the guy was being sarcastic. And that case never had to go to trial because I was able to talk to the district attorney and judge about it. So it can be helpful, but I like to have that option open so it's never a financial decision. Like I can't max out a bunch of credit cards to pay you to take this case to trial because it breaks my heart. I love being in trial, and it's great for me because I love doing it, and no matter what happens, I go home. Right?
Yeah.
So I can go in there and fight your case, knowing that it's all taken care of, and I'm not sort of gonna throw in the towel because oh this case is never gonna go to trial. As far as I'm concerned, any case could be a good trial case. My client gets to decide whether that case is going to trial.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Well, hey, that in itself was good information. We're gonna.
Okay.
Wait, we're gonna say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you one thing that I wanted to mention that this comes back to the very beginning of our conversation about the kind of links between what you do and what I do. And it's geeky, but whatever. I think you'll dig it. Um, you know from your own experience in clubs or wherever you work that it's about 70% how you sound, 20% how you look, and only about 10% what you say, right?
Right.
Constantly calibrating your attitude based on what's going on around you. So I only found out about this recently and I wanted to share it. There was a study done in the 70s. You can look this up on YouTube. It's awesome. It's called the Dr. Fox Lectures. And it's just what that sounds like. It's not spelled funny at all. What the researchers did was have this guy deliver an academic lecture at a seminar. And the lecture itself made no sense whatsoever. But it was full of academic jargon. It's at the seminar. It sounds like it ought to make sense. And he fooled everybody. He fooled, other researchers in the same field because he looked like he knew what he was talking about and he sounded like he knew what he was talking about. I just think that's valuable for guys for guys in your area. Guys go out in the field. They're not sure what to say. They think they have to memorize a bunch of routines and this and that. But if you are coherent, or what's the term you use? It's not coherent. It's uh,
Just strong sub communications. Like
yeah,
basically just having charisma, kind of a dominant vibe. Yeah.
yeah, congruent maybe. I can't.
Oh, congruence. It is congruence. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's our buzzword.
Yeah, if you can do that, if you can be that guy, it almost doesn't matter what words are actually coming out of your mouth.
Right.
I've read transcripts of mine winning arguments in court that when you look at the transcript, they kind of don't make any sense. But I was feeling it.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally it. How
Yeah.
funny is that? Yeah, yeah. It's funny the training I put guys through. I'm just teaching them styles of communication. The words are fluff. Like I'm just teaching them how to project emotion, how to sound a certain way, how to feel comfortable. A lot of this is just making them do and say certain things that gets them comfortable saying them, and then when they go in the field and do it, girls are just like completely magnetized and just all over it. I'm not a guy that teaches routines. I don't teach the words. I mean, I can. I actually write guys text game for them, and it gets them laid or it gets them on dates. But generally, when you're actually meeting women, it's all about the vibe you're projecting, the authority you're projecting, the humor you're projecting, the authority over her you're projecting, and that level of comfort. I've done things to women in clubs where it shocks guys, but when I did it to the girl, she looked in my eyes and she was just like, "Well, this guy does this every day, so it's okay, right?" And that's how you get a lot of like fast lays is what we call them, right? But yeah, I absolutely agree. That's a very funny study. I guess I'll have to look into that. If nothing else, it proves what we've been saying the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. There's a short video just with examples, and I'm telling you, I mean, I'm more than a little bit of a geek about, I think the lecture is about genetics, and it would have fooled me.
Nice.
And I see this guy, and they show clips like this guy was an actor. He was on Batman. It was just a guy. He didn't even know what he was saying, but he was able to put this over. And I'm not saying that in my own practice I try to make a point of having it not make any sense and get by on outrage, but I think it's important for anybody to know that acting with conviction can be that first step. You don't memorize your whole life and then go out and do it. You say, I'm going to, I don't know, what I feel like guys get out of your practice is the confidence that comes from holding yourself to your own high standard, whatever that is.
Right.
And so, if that's working out, if that's learning, if that's pickup, then you can decide, you can wake up in the morning and you can be that guy.
Nice. Yeah, that's so funny. It's like that used to be my buzzword for years. Be that guy. It's hilarious to hear that come out of your mouth. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Great minds think alike, baby.
Yeah, that is too funny. Exactly. Well, hey, I had an awesome time. Um, give us your web address one more time, and
Sure,
let's call this
absolutely.
an evening.
Yeah, it's you can use Gunnar Law, that's GUNNARLAW.com, or you can use my last name, which is Rosenquist Law, ROSENQUISTLAW.com. You can Google me, and you'll know it's me because it's the attorney and not the guy with the awesome beard. There's a competitive beard grower out there in the world with my name, and I'm the other one.
Nice, nice. You're not the marijuana grower. You're
Yeah,
the
I'm
lawyer.
not. I'm not the marijuana grower. I'm not the beard guy. I'm not the Swedish soccer player from the 50s. I'm the other
Nice.
guy.
All right, Gunner. Yeah, you've got pretty much the greatest name of all time. All right, I had an awesome time. Thank you so much, and keep kicking ass, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Take it easy.